Hello and thank you for joining us today. My name is Wesley Boudreaux, one of the AT&T Focus Advisors here with the Retirement Group. Today we're going to talk about some upcoming healthcare changes AT&T is instituting across the board. Before we get started, just a couple of quick reminders about the webinar. If you have any questions, go ahead and feel free to put those in the Q&A box. Your name is anonymous, so we will not see that. So any question you have, put those in there. We'll be sure to address as many as we can at the end of this webinar. If we don't get to all of them, we'll try and circle back with you as well. There's also a chat box in here. Go ahead and keep an eye on that periodically throughout the course of the webinar. We'll be adding some information, different items like how to schedule an appointment with myself or one of the other AT&T focused advisors, how to follow specifically on LinkedIn for the AT&T page, maybe a survey to ask how this webinar went or any suggested topics you want to add. Things like that will be in there. Another quick reminder, even though we've worked extensively with AT&T for 30 years, that does not mean that we are employed by them nor are we endorsed by them. But obviously, should you have any detailed questions around the healthcare or retirement planning, that's where we can help you as well. So a quick reminder, for those of you who do not remember who the Retirement Group is or haven't sat down with us in a while, again, we are an independent financial advisory firm that focuses on working with corporate employees and helping them transition into retirement. Now, we've started doing this with AT&T a little bit over 30 years ago, so we've got an extensive background of working with AT&T employees and retirees. So it gives our advisors a deep knowledge of your different benefits, whether it be the health care, we'll talk a little bit about today, the pension calculation options, the different ways to take that, your 401k, life insurance benefits you have through the company. So pretty much everything that's associated with financial planning as you transition to retirement is something we can help you out with. And our goal is to help you prior to retirement, make sure you have a good understanding of what is available to you. So when you do decide to leave the company, you can maximize those benefits. And then obviously, we hope you throw our hat in the ring when it comes time for investment management post-retirement, and we can help you out there as well. We do have offices throughout the country, so rest assured if you need to sit down with somebody face-to-face, we can still accommodate that. But obviously, this day and age, it's very easy to have web meetings, phone call, email, whatever your preferred communication method is. Just let us know. And I'll reference this again later, but one of the biggest things to take us up on is our complementary cash flow analysis. This is actually a detailed financial plan specific to the AT&T benefits, so you have a better idea, like I said, of when's the best day to retire. We tend to run this for multiple scenarios to let you know, okay, maybe, hey, Wesley, I'm thinking about retiring in 2 years. I want to see how this looks. We might run it for 2 years and show you, okay, here's how you look in 2 years. Here's how it looks if you want to retire earlier. Or we might uncover, hey, unfortunately, you need to work another 2 or 3 more years to meet those goals, or change those goals to spend less. So we can go through all those different options, help you determine on the pension, whether to take it as an annuity or a lump sum, go through all those pros and cons, and how it looks not just now, but how it looks in 10, 20, 30 years down the road for both you and your beneficiaries. So that's definitely something to take us up on. And you may have noticed this, but there's a QR code up there if you want to follow along with us on LinkedIn and get updated information as we get it on AT&T plan changes or updated webinars. That's where you can get that information as well. So let's go ahead and dig into healthcare in just a moment, but let's talk about what are some of the biggest factors that people are concerned about as they transition into retirement. And one of the biggest things is obviously running out of money. I mentioned before that cash flow analysis. And that's what's going to tell us, okay, do I have enough money to meet the goals that I have set at this time? Now, it's really important for us to kind of talk with you again about your budget and understand those goals can change. So we have to focus on your spending to make sure that it is going to be something you have a good idea of, because as that changes, so could your issue of running out of money. Unfortunately, doing this for 30 years, we've had the issues where we've sat down with people and they've told us what they're going to be spending, and unfortunately, they got into retirement, they start spending more and had risk of running out of money sooner or reducing their spending later in retirement. So again, these are concerns to be focused on. Some of those things that kind of tie into that spending, which we'll talk about today, are going to be people are living longer. Let's face it, that's one of the benefits of the last couple decades and medical advancements. We are living longer. Healthcare costs because of this are actually rising as well, and just general inflation is moving cost up as well. So a lot of things we're doing is getting more and more expensive. The good news is when we run a cash flow analysis, we look at this from a very conservative perspective. We assume perpetual inflation. But in reality, keep in mind, a lot of us will see inflation hammer our spending for maybe the first 10, 15, 20 years or so. But then beyond that, unfortunately, we kind of slow down. We're not traveling as much. We've got our we've got, our house probably paid for, we got our furniture, got most of our clothing. It's really just kind of food, medical, and things of that nature. So in reality, even though inflation is setting in and we're seeing it rear its ugly head this last year or so and continuing, it may not affect you as much in later years, besides in the medical aspect of it. So let's talk about what AT&T is looking at doing and some of the changes coming about, not here in 2023, but next year in 2024. And what they're what they're doing is they are doing away with the reimbursement accounts and subsidizing the healthcare premium. So what's going to happen is you still have access to your healthcare plan if you decide to retire or you leave AT&T. And so, but the difference is you're going to be paying full boat for that, as opposed to AT&T providing a supplement for it and giving you the health reimbursement account as well. And then also when you're looking at the Medicare supplement, that's changing as well. And what's happened is they've actually gone in and they're partnering with United Healthcare and essentially giving a Medigap policy that's available to you at a pretty reduced cost. It's actually going to be $0 for you. So if you're 65 and older, you're getting that Medigap policy with no cost. And for your spouse or dependent, it's going to be $50 a month. Now they are actually making a change. It's really only $50. I'm saying it's only $50 for the first year, 2024. Actually for 2025, 26, 27, 28, it's going to be $0 for them. So really it's just 2024. You've got a small $50 a month payment for your spouse if you guys are both Medicare eligible, and then it's going away. So it's $0 premium for both of you through 2028, at which time they're going to reassess this, and there may be changes again associated with that. So it's really important to keep in mind that obviously you've seen over the last decade a lot of changes to the post-retiree benefits, and that will continue, but this is where we're going to be right now for 2024 with those changes coming ahead. Now as far as the healthcare cost, let's kind of go through a couple different things. We'll talk about the expected cost and what they actually are based upon some surveys and studies. We'll talk about your healthcare options if you decide to retire the company before 65, which a lot of you do, and talk about some of the health insurance options there, and then some of the rising costs that we're seeing and how that's looking from year to year. Now, first and foremost, unfortunately, a lot of people underestimate the cost they think they're going to spend in retirement on healthcare. The average person thinks they're going to spend about $41,000 over the course of their life on healthcare expenses. Now, there's been a study done by Fidelity that actually the total cost is about $315,000. So in reality, you're actually looking at a shortfall of about $274,000 for a married couple. So about half of that if you're single. So again, keep in mind the cost for healthcare are a lot higher than a lot of you may think. So again, that's where it has to come into planning and budgeting for your cash flow analysis. We'll talk a little bit about that a little bit later. Now, as far as the increases of healthcare cost coming about this year, if we look at just the drugs, for instance, alone, those have increased about 5.6% over the course of the last year. And a lot of this is obviously they're trying to kind of maintain these costs. Since the Affordable Care Act, we've seen some costs skyrocket because unfortunately, it's a plan where a lot of lower income are not having to pay a premium. So obviously, if you've got higher income, they're driving up prices to supplement some of those. And the healthcare companies are still trying to obviously make a profit there. But right now, the pharmaceutical companies, they raised prices on about 983 different drugs for different items like arthritis, cancer, things like that. And the average across the board is about 5.6%. But again, that's the average. There's some drugs that went up 20, 30%. And there's some that kind of maintain their cost again. So it's really going to depend upon if you have any specific medical needs and what those drugs are there, where as far as how it can adjust your actual cost from your perspective. So let's talk about if you decide to retire before 65, which let's face it, a lot of you do with AT&T. And the question is, what am I going to do now? It used to be that you had the option of maintaining that AT&T plan, and they continued to make some supplemental payments, so your premium went up, but it didn't go up quite that much. Now, unfortunately, it's going to jump quite a bit. They're not taking away the plan from you, but essentially they're not going to pay their portion anymore of it. So you're paying full boat on the AT&T medical plan. So what's going to happen is that's going to go up. Your premiums are going to be a lot higher. It could be anywhere from $700 to $1,200 a month, depending upon your situation, age, and things of that nature on what that's going to cost you. The other option is, let's say if you were leaving AT&T and you're going to go find another job and you're just going to be out of the marketplace for maybe a couple months, or maybe you were retiring close to 65, you could go on COBRA, which is an extension of your current policy. But again, it's going to be more expensive. You have to look at COBRA rates on that. You can hold that out for 18 months. So that's kind of another option to look at. And again, when we look at walking people through retirement, we run through these case by case so you can see what your specific situation is. We help you call the healthcare department so you can find out what the costs will be and kind of factor those into everything. Now, another benefit is, let's say if you leave and you have a spouse that's still working and he or she's got a pretty good medical plan, that you can possibly go on his or her medical plan. We worked with a lot of people last year that did that, so that they were able to take advantage of the higher lump sum rates they got out of AT&T, but obviously the management didn't have that option for the medical, so we had a couple that were lucky enough to go on their spouse's plan. Or again, maybe you're out of the marketplace for just a short period of time. You're going to find a different job. Hopefully that new job has got their own medical plan. You can go into that. But if you don't have any of those options, then you have to go through Obamacare or the Affordable Care Act and look at the healthcare exchanges on a national or state basis and look at the costs associated with that. And unfortunately, that cost is going to depend upon what your income is. So if you are fully retired and you're not working anymore, you're not spending that much, then it could be a pretty cheap plan. If you decide to go work for another company, and let's say that company doesn't have a really good plan or doesn't even have health care, or you're self-employed or whatever it may be, then it might be expensive depending upon how much you make. And so there's a lot of different selection options in there. And another one, a sixth one that is not mentioned here is actually indemnity plans. There are other options where you can actually look at a plan that provides your MEC, which satisfies the Affordable Care Act to cover your preventative services, but then for maybe your ancillary things, you can get like a hospital indemnity plan where it's going to pay a multiplier of what Medicare pays. It's probably going to end up cheaper than the healthcare exchange if you make good money, but it will be limited as far as what the options are. So all these things can be talked about as you transition, and we can kind of go through the pros and cons associated with those as well. So let's talk about the Affordable Care Act. There's a lot of information here, so we're not gonna go into the details. Just gonna go high level on some of this. But some of the good things about it is that pretty much everybody can get covered under it. There's not going to be any pre-existing condition issues. Like I mentioned before, depending upon your amount of income, you may get supplements or credits towards it. Right now, about 87% of the marketplace recipients do get a credit. That could be a credit all the way to where you're only paying $100 a month, or instead of paying $1,000, you might be paying $500, $400, $700. It just depends on what your income is. And when you go through there and do that calculation, it's not your past income, it's your future income. So you give an estimate as to what you're going to make for 2023 or 2024, and then they'll calculate it based upon that. Now, however, there's a catch there because they're giving you that rate based upon that assumption. If you turn around and get a job and make a lot more money, they'll come back and hit you with a tax on that credit, so you'll have to pay that back. So again, there's a lot of kind of understanding and maneuvering with the Affordable Care Act there as well. So again, the premiums usually are reasonable, unless again you make high income, then you're probably not going to have any credits. It's going to be pretty expensive. The enrollment periods are it's an open enrollment period in the late fall, early winter, so usually November, December time frame. Or there are some other options where if let's say right now, let's say mid-year you leave AT&T, then you've had a change in job and a change in healthcare, so you can do that. Maybe you make a move, something like that. You add a dependent, which probably is not going to be the case if you're if you're in your 50s or 60s retiring, but for those of you that may be leaving and you're younger, if you have a child or something like that, it's another one. And then you can choose your plan. There's a lot of different plans available. It depends upon your state because there's a state exchange. So some states may only have 1 or 2 plans. Some may have 4 or 5 or 6. Different providers, different levels, whether it's bronze, silver, or gold or platinum. The difference between those is just going to be as far as the level of service, like what your doctor's choices are, whether it's an HMO or PPO, how much you're going to be paying as far as your premiums, and what your deductions are, what your maximum deductions are, things of that nature are going to be differences between those. So if you don't plan on using it a lot and you think you're not going to need the doctor, then maybe a cheaper plan might make more sense. But if you're going to be using it a lot, then maybe a more expensive plan might make sense. And this is something where we can talk with you about on a high level, but you can also talk with healthcare healthcare professionals that can go through these options with you as well, because healthcare agents on these, they don't make any, they obviously make a commission on them, but there's nothing different whether you do it on your own or work with the help of them. So we can always hook you up with somebody there as well. So a lot of this we talked about, honestly, the question becomes, we looked before, people saying, hey, we're going to spend $41,000, but in reality it's going to be $300,000 or something like that. How do we know this? Well, the best way to actually kind of take a look at that long-term plan is to go back in that cash flow analysis we talked about. And we've used this, classically to determine, based upon you telling us what your expenses are, what your assets are, the 401k, the pension, things like that, Social Security. Are you going to be able to maintain your lifestyle for the next 20, 30, 40 years? What are you going to pass on to beneficiaries? We go through all that. But this is also where we can actually back into the healthcare numbers. We can run these assumptions. We did this for a lot of individuals making the jump last year, because let's face it, individuals at AT&T were locking in that high lump sum rate last year. But at the same time, they were foregoing some medical options because maybe they were 3 or 4 or even 7 years away from 65. So you have to look at, okay, if I'm not going to get another job, how do I pay for my medical? So we can run that through the cash flow analysis too, to show you all that and what the short-term and long-term effects are, and kind of help you determine the best situation for you on those medical expenses. Because we talked with individuals where they were ready to jump the ship, and because they were losing a significant amount, maybe $100,000 or more on the lump sum. But when we ran the numbers, and if they weren't going to be going back to work, it was going to cost them close to about the same over the next, let's say, 6 or 7 years in healthcare cost and the difference. So again, you got to view everything when it comes time to make that decision. That's why it's important to work with a financial advisory firm that has worked extensively with AT&T in the past. So let's talk a little bit about Medicare, and once you turn that golden 65 and some of the benefits you have there, because things are going to get better as far as cost-wise for you. It's going to get a lot cheaper, lower premiums, better benefits usually as well, and then guarantees about 80% of your medical expenses. So there's a lot more benefits with Medicare, and then there are some differences as far as you got your Part A, your Part B, you've got C, D, some Medigaps, all those different options. We'll go through some of that. But the key thing to remember is enrollment period starts 3 months before 65. So you do want to go ahead and get enrolled in there. So right when you're about to turn 65 or you're approaching 65, that's when you can go ahead and go online or call up and get that enrollment process started. So you'll get you'll be able to get Medicare for yourself. So what are some of the differences as far as the, whether you're looking at a Medigap policy or a Part C? I'm going to zoom in here just because this is pretty big. So keep in mind there is a difference between a Medigap, which is essentially a Medicare supplement, and Medicare Advantage Part C. And it's really going to be kind of pros and cons depending upon what you're looking for. But the Medigap's really going to be a little bit more expensive, and it's going to give you more flexibility for your options with healthcare. So you keep your Medicare. You choose your own doctors. You get the higher premiums, as I mentioned. You don't have to worry about referrals. It's really kind of like a PPO. There are some limitations. You may not have vision or hearing associated with it. You get coverage everywhere, and the good things is it's guarantee renewable. The benefits do not change. Whereas Medicare Advantage Part C, you're essentially forfeiting your original Medicare. You're kind of like on an HMO, or you got restricted network, much lower premiums. You could have copays associated with it. You may need referrals for specialists. And it does include different benefits like vision and hearing, and maybe some fitness options. And your emergency services are only available outside. And then unfortunately it can change on a yearly basis as well. So they essentially reassess this every year. So really it kind of depends upon what you're looking for. If you're looking for the most flexibility, that's where that Medigap's going to come into play. If you're looking for keeping your costs down and you're willing to kind of be tied down to maybe a select number of doctors in your area, and understand that there could be pros and cons to that, then the Medicare Advantage may be a better option for you as well. Another thing to be aware of is for high income earners, especially if you're making good money at AT&T right now, and then you decide to retire, let's say at 64 or 65, really close to Medicare. This could affect your Part B and your Part D premiums. A lot of people are not aware about this, but what they do is there's the IRMA, which is the income related monthly adjustment amount, that they go in there and look at, okay, how much have you made over the last 2 years or about 2 years prior, to determine, okay, can this person afford a higher premium on their Medicare Part B and Part D? And that cutoff right now for 2023 is somebody who's makes over $97,000 individually or over $194,000 joint. So let's say if you're a husband and wife and you retire and you're 64, you guys make $200,000, then you're actually going to pay a higher premium than if you had made $195,000 on your modified adjusted gross income. Now that's going to be a 2-year look back. So again, if you're, let's say if you retire at 62 and you go on, you stick with the AT&T plan, you go to Affordable Care Act plan or something like that for the next 3 years, and you're not making much money anymore, you're just taking distributions, then once Medicare kicks in, you'll be under regular, because you'll be under that because it's been longer than 2 years for that look back. So let's give a quick example of what we see kind of time to time, individuals that may be leaving. There's differences as far as the age of spouses and stuff, and this is just a basic example. Obviously, we can run through your specific situation, may be different. But in this example, let's look at Bob and Jane. Bob's 65, so he's on Medicare now, and Jane's 62, where he's having to, or they're having to figure out, okay, what are we going to do for her? They're both retired in this case. They were actually, in this case, the income's $180,000. Let's assume that they both just retired, so we're looking at that for the look back. So again, on that, the IRMA we just mentioned, they're just below there, so no issues there. But for Bob's healthcare, he's only about $300 a month because he's on Medicare. He's got Part A, which is always covered. Part B, his premium is about $170 a month. His supplement is $127, and his Part D is $750. On the other hand, Jane, she's going to have to go out there and look at the healthcare exchange to find something. And again, it's going to depend upon what stage you're in. There's a wide range which you choose, whether it's silver, bronze, gold, things like that. But let's just assume in her case, it's costing as much as $1,200 a month for her. So between the two of them, they've got about $1,500 a month in medical cost, at least for the next 3 years. And then once she turns Medicare eligible, then hers will come down similar to where Bob's is. So it's going to save, maybe $900, $800, $900,000 a month or so for them. So this is something you have to factor in there whenever you're managing, or whenever you're running through a cash flow analysis and looking at everything for individuals. So like I said, the best way to do this is by looking at a cash flow analysis and also understanding where you are and what that IRMA could hit you, because those, if you had made significant income, or maybe you did something in 1 year that enhanced your income, it could come back to haunt you in future years. So here's the breakdown. I'm not going to kind of go through this in general, but again, we mentioned if you're under 97,000 or 194, it's going to be $165 a month essentially. If you get up above that, it goes to 230, then 329, then 428, 527, then 560. So let's say somebody who was a couple that was making 350. Which is good money. You're going to be at 329, so a pretty decent amount more. So just keep that in mind whenever it comes time for planning. There's not a one-size-fits-all. You could be paying a little bit more in your healthcare premiums, even through Medicare, and it's something we go through with our clients, and we go through this as well. So talking about premiums, again, like I mentioned before, it's going to be state-specific, because if you're looking at the Affordable Care Act, it all depends upon the healthcare exchange in your state, and a lot of times some of those changes in prices are different from state to state. Like I mentioned before, some of the flexibility, there might be some states only have 1, maybe 2 choices. Some might have 4 or 5 or 6 or more. But on average, what we've seen, last year is the marketplace for somebody who's 40-year-old. Obviously, this isn't the case for many of you that are, retiring in your late 50s or early 60s or so. But the marketplace is about $560 per month. And then we saw about a 4% increase. But if you look at some of the other states, Georgia, Colorado, Wyoming, Alaska, New Mexico, saw higher increase, about 15% to 20% from last year to this year. So keep that in mind. Again, it's going to depend upon where you are. When we go through that cash flow analysis, a lot of times we talk about planning on which state are you going to stay in. Are you going to, let's say, retire in California, but maybe move to Texas or somewhere else, or Nevada, to save on state taxes? Well, that could also save you on potential Medicare costs as well. So all those things can kind of go into play with the cash flow analysis. And then for Medicare Part A, those costs have actually gone up about 3%, so not quite as high as what inflation's been going. This chart gives you kind of a breakdown of a lot of different costs. I'm not going to spend any time on there because it's a little bit unnecessary, but just keep in mind there's different aspects of those changes. Again, you could have increase in premium on Medicare, different parts of that. You could have increases on the Affordable Care Act. It could have just increases on drugs and things of that nature. So there's a lot of different changes, but historically, unfortunately, healthcare has inflated more rapidly than what the general inflation has been in the past. So I've talked about a lot of this, but really, to be honest with you, the best way to kind of tie this together and talk again about the retirement process and The cash flow analysis we mentioned is by working with a financial advisory firm. And obviously, we'd love to talk with you here at the Retirement Group, make sure that you're in the right position for your transition to retirement, and see if there's anything else we can help you out with. But an interesting study came out a couple years ago by Russell Investments that kind of shows some of the benefits of working with an investment advisory team versus doing it on your own. Now, again, a lot of this you can do on your own, but some of the benefits are, they said that there's actually potentially up to a 4% difference as far as performance. I know we've always gone back and shown the Dow Bar study, which shows a buy and hold versus a DIY person that's going to buy and sell usually underperforms the market by about 40% or so. But this is kind of giving you some of the benefits of what an advisory team can help you out with. And a big chunk of it is going to be coaching and understanding your emotions. We go through seminars on this, but obviously it's our job as advisors to kind of walk our clients through the emotional process and help them navigate the ship essentially, and not make any knee-jerk reactions and jump ship, go all cash, things of that nature at different times. And a lot of that kind of correlates to higher long-term returns. The portfolio construction obviously is something that is key to that as well. There's a lot more choices in an IRA than what you have within the 401k plan, so a lot of times you may need the expertise of an investment advisory firm to help you with that and narrow that down. And then the active management is something that's key as well, and that's where it comes to not just the stock picking and the mutual fund and ETF picking, but also the asset allocation, the tactical allocation, making minor shifts here and there given market situations. So just if you have questions on this, want to dig into what we can provide for you besides just some of these webinars and the information we're giving you, give us a call on a one-on-one basis. We can talk with you. You can reach us at 800-900-5867. You can also reach us at info@theretirementgroup.com. We'll be sure to follow up with you and answer your questions, or set you up with myself or one of the other advisors to go through any questions you have. And then, if you got your cell phone out, I'll hold this up and we'll get over to some of these questions here in just a moment. But there's a QR code to schedule an appointment with myself or one of the other advisors. That's going to get you access to our calendar. It's going to be about a week out, so if you need something sooner, just give us a call. And then the LinkedIn page, if you want to follow specifically on our AT&T focused LinkedIn page, so you can get updates on different things like this, the healthcare changes and stuff, company plan changes, interest rate changes, things like that. We'll keep you updated on that as well. So let me see. Looks like we got some different questions kind of coming through here, and I'll try and knock out as many of these as I can, hopefully. The first one, what about my disabled son? Will he still get benefits under the new AT&T plan in 2024? I'll be honest with you. I think the answer is probably going to be yes, but I don't want to give you a false answer. There shouldn't be any changes to the dependents. I know there's not going to be. You're still going to have those options through. The spouse will still be able to be on the plan. The dependents will still be on the plan. Yes, you'll still get the benefits, but again, you're going to be paying more for them potentially. The best way to do this would actually, because it's going to be under that new United Healthcare plan, if you want to call them, it's 866-819-3448, or you can call us so we can kind of walk you through that. But I don't want to give a false answer there, but I'm pretty sure the answer is yes, but again, it's going to cost you more. If AT&T takes away the HRA, how will I afford my out-of-pocket cost? Okay, this is when we talked about the rising healthcare costs and things. Unfortunately, this is going to be a kind of a one-on-one situation, whereas again, you've got that the HRA. Now, if you got something built up in there, it's still going to be available. It's just this year, 2023, is the last year of that. It's going away in 2024. So unfortunately, if you've burned through that or don't have any more, starting in 2024, you're going to be paying out-of-pocket, and it is what it is. It's going to be your cost associated with that. So we may need to look at that cash flow analysis, kind of take a look at what you're doing. Maybe does it make sense for you to set aside, a savings account on your own to build those up? We can go through all those different options with you. But the affordability obviously is going to be a case-by-case situation for each individual. But unfortunately, it is what it is. They're not going to have that anymore, so you're going to have to come up with that on your own. So I do apologize. Does my Social Security benefit pay for Medicare? No, the Social Security does not pay for Medicare, but it does. You do have a deduction of Medicare. So let's assume that. Let's assume you retired, and maybe you, instead of waiting until full retirement age of 67 or so to take Social Security, maybe you took it at 62, and let's assume maybe you're getting $1,500 a month. So at 62, let's throw away inflation or cost of living adjustment. Let's just say at 62, 63, 64, you're getting that $1,500 a month. Then all of a sudden 65 hits in and you're starting to collect or starting to get Medicare. What's going to happen is Part A premium is already in there, but Part B, they're going to deduct that from the Social Security. So instead of getting $1,500, you might get $1,350 or $1,360 or $1,320, whatever it may be, the difference of that Medicare Part B. And then if you've got Part D or others or Part C, if you want to have that deducted, you can have that deducted as well. But no, Social Security does not pay for it, but it does have a withholding in there if you want to on there. So you will see a change in your Social Security once Medicare kicks in. Otherwise, if you collect the Social Security at 67 or post Medicare, you're not going to really see a change in that case. If I retire before 65, do I have to wait until open enrollment to use the healthcare exchange? Okay, I talked about this a little bit with some different options. No, so the open enrollment is going to be usually in like the end of October through mid-December usually. So that's the main open enrollment. But let's say if you're leaving AT&T, that is a change in your healthcare options. So you can actually do a special election there. If you're moving, you can do a special enrollment there as well. So there's some different options. So if you're before 65, so yeah, if you're under 65, the healthcare exchange is what you're looking at, versus 65, obviously you would look at Medicare. So let's assume that maybe you leave the company AT&T in May of 2023. That's not during open enrollment, and so you got to look at those choices we kind of went before. Whether you look at Cobra, whether you stay on AT&T and pay the higher premium, or maybe you want to look at the healthcare exchange and go through that special enrollment. Or it could be you stay on Cobra or stay on the AT&T plan and then wait until open enrollment and kind of analyze those as well. So there are some options there, but generally speaking, for most people, if you didn't just have a change in service, then open enrollment is the only period. But if you've had a change in service removed, then those are some other special provisions you can get in there for the special election. Let's do one last one, and then we'll get this wrapped up. My current advisor helped me with a big Roth conversion, but didn't tell me about the higher Medicare premiums. Will they be higher forever now? Okay, so this is an example of I guess somebody working with someone maybe did a Roth conversion, and that advisor maybe didn't dig into the full details. Just kind of talk to them about, hey, if you convert this, it can save you some. It's going to cost you taxes now. It's going to save you more in the long run. And we do this all the time with our clients. We review this on an annual basis and look at Roth conversion options, whether we do small amounts to stay within a certain tax bracket or whether we do large amounts in 1 year to kind of front load it. But one of the things to be aware of is, again, I mentioned before, I showed you that slide with all the different income levels for IRMA, which is the higher premium you're going to have on the Medicare plans. And so what's going to happen is, if you do, let's say, a Roth conversion, a big one in 1 year, maybe you do $300,000. Now all of a sudden, instead of paying $165 a month, your premium might go up to $330 or something like that. And this person, I guess in this example, wasn't told about that or didn't understand that. The good news is it's a 2-year look back, so it's not going to be on there forever like this question is stating. So you're going to have a higher premium, but they look 2 years back at your taxes to see what your modified adjusted gross income was. So if you did this Roth conversion in 1 year and didn't do anything the next year, then you're going to go back on. So just be a 1 year period, not perpetual. But again, this is something that's very important to review because we do this, and let's say if somebody wants to do a sizable Roth conversion, we run through those side by side and figure out, okay, this is how much it's going to cost you in taxes, here's how much it's going to save you in the long run, but also let's look at how much it's going to increase your Medicare payments as well for 1 year, total those up so we know what that cost benefit is and run through that full analysis. So if you are working with an advisor that did that and made that mistake, give us a call. We'll be happy to kind of run through some of these options with you too, and maybe provide checks and balances, make sure they're doing the right thing. I know that we've worked with a lot of individuals that came over to us from other advisors because they didn't know the AT&T plans, didn't know small things like this. So at any point in time, if you need a second opinion, feel free to just reach out, give us a call. So again, you can always reach us at 800-900-5867. And again, a quick reminder, even though we've worked extensively with AT&T for the last 30 years and we've got a deep understanding of your plans, we can help you out. That does not mean we're employed by AT&T nor endorsed by them. But again, should you have any questions, reach out, give us a call or email us, and we'll be happy to help you out with those. I want to thank everybody for joining us. We hope you have a great day.